right, Joe, it's your last night, big night. Got to give a good speech. Don't want to read stuff that I shouldn't, like the instructions for the teleprompter and stuff. So how do I prepare? Maybe I'll take a walk. I think I need a milkshake.
How's the promotion working?
Oh, it's good. It's good. I just missed it up there, but it's good.
We miss you.
Oh, thank you.
Just came out to say hi.
Thank you.
By the way, can you make me a milkshake?
Yeah, it's even like 5 minutes.
All right.
Is that okay?
That's good. Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Miss you, pal.
I'll miss you
Come up
too,
and see us once in a while.
I will.
I don't know. Maybe I need another one. It is going to be on pretty late, and I don't want to do stuff like read the teleprompter instructions. Oh, chocolate, yes.
Oh, that's cute. Look at my grandson.
So there we go. 2 milkshakes, inspired by the picture of my grandson. I can't mess this up. Let's go give this speech. I won't read any teleprompter instructions.
Potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power. End of quote.
Well, Poop, you can't win them all. And live from Times Square, it's that Kevin Show.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Vostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. And tonight, transitioning to Trump 2.0, Sarah Parshall Perry of the Heritage Foundation and Carrie Lukas of Independent Women's Forum. Sketch comedy from Not a Parody, the Babylon Bee, and the Holderness family. Comfort in the suffering in Southern Cal, Camille Block. And Megan Woods returns to the Spotlight. And now, a man whose name is eerily similar to the prankster putting up $20 billion for TikTok. Nope, not the other Kevin. Nope. Here's that Kevin! Boy, you're not joking, David Pipes. Man, I wish I had the $20 billion to what O'Leary's doing. That is quite a story, and if you're not on the TikTok, then you may not be aware. But yesterday the Supreme Court decided to uphold the ban. Weirdest thing I've ever seen in the course of a bill becoming a law. You remember what was that called? Schoolhouse Junction cartoons on Sunday morning or Saturday morning when you're watching the cartoons and they come on with the little, schoolhouse lesson, and it was how a bill becomes a law. And that did. The TikTok ban became a law. Bipartisan forces, Democrats, Republicans came together, said TikTok's bad, it's spying on us, we gotta ban it. And they built this whole case around national security, and evidently there was some agreement that on both sides of the aisle that this was a dangerous thing. They took it. TikTok tried to fight it. It went back and forth. It went through all the courts. It worked its way up to the Supreme Court. And somewhere along the line, a whole bunch of people changed their mind because all of a sudden now, Biden signed it into law, but now Biden and Trump neither one of them want to enforce it in law. And none of the senators want it to be banned anymore. None of the House members want it to be banned anymore. You know what happened, don't you? We had an election in the middle of all that, and they all figured out, hey, TikTok's a pretty cool tool that's easy to communicate with. By the way, did you know that that Kevin show's on the TikTok? Now, you might need to know that if you log in and sign up for the TikTok and you follow me, then you're going to get a lot of pro-American common sense, communism's bad stuff. So if you want to fill up the evil communist Chinese with more information about, the great things that America can be, sign up for the TikTok and then play all my videos over and over again. They'll be so educated on conservative American ideals, they'll want to ban it themselves. Actually, you know what? I heard that's the weird thing about this yesterday when the ruling came down. I did not know this until one of the legal animals mentioned it and said, yeah, China doesn't even allow Chinese kids to use it. So it's a Chinese-owned company that's made and distributed from China, and the China government, Chinese Mr., the big guy, the guy that wants to be the emperor for life, Mr. Xi Jinping, he doesn't own, but he controls the TikTok because the company that runs it is a CCP company. So he knows, and he decides, and then he sends, and then they have to respond. But they do not let the Chinese young people, no Chinese young people get to use the TikTok. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see where that goes, but I'm not buying it. Don't confuse me with the bald-headed Kevin that's buying it. If he gets to buy it. I mean, 20 billion. I don't know. That seems like chump change. I just saw the return for Zuckerberg. Meta, I think, announced a valuation at earnings of $1 trillion. It's like that scene from Austin Powers where they're like, that much money doesn't even exist yet. Yeah, it does, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of moolah. You know what else was very interesting this week? Are you loving the confirmation hearings? I have a mad attorney girl crush on this one. Pam Bondi, who I always thought was way smarter than she sounded, because I'm from the South. People that speak with the Southern drawl, we get the short shrift sometimes. People don't think we're as intelligent because our words take longer to say. But man, was she giving it to the senators that were on the Judiciary Committee trying to pre-vet her. She was having none of this. Take a look here. This is Sheldon Whitehouse,
who have said that Department of Justice prosecutors will be prosecuted in the Trump administration. What Department of Justice prosecutors will be prosecuted and why?
I said that on TV. I said prosecutors will be prosecuted, to finish the quote, if bad. Investigators will be investigated. You know, we all take an oath, Senator, to uphold the law. None of us are above the law. Let me give you a really good example of a bad lawyer within the Justice Department, a guy named Klein Smith, who altered a FISA warrant, one of the most important things we can do in this country. So will everyone be held to an equal, fair system of justice if I am the next Attorney General? Absolutely. And no one is above the law.
Now, you're the senator from Rhode Island. Why would you take that tact with her? Did that make any sense at all? And like I said, she's suffering no fools at this point. Dick Blumenthal, I've never thought this guy was very smart. And he kind of fibbed about his service, and he's done some things that are really shady. He tried to get in on the action too. Take a look. It's very distasteful.
Can you say no to the President of the United States when he asks you to do something unethical or illegal?
Senator, first, I need to clarify something that you said, that I have to sit up here and say these things. No, I don't. I sit up here and speak the truth. I'm not going to sit up here and say anything that I need to say to get confirmed by this body. I don't have to say anything. I will answer the questions to the best of my ability and honestly.
Let me ask you.
But you understand why she was offended by that question, as she should be, because she doesn't have to sit there and say anything. But here's the part that they're not saying out loud. That's how all of them operate on that side of the aisle. What do I have to say to get the job? What box do I have to check? How intersectional do you want me to be? I'll become a chameleon if you'll just give me my government job for the rest of my life. I promise. That's how that party, that's how that group of people, that's how all of them, that's how they go about it on that side. What's blowing all of their brains up like little suicide bombers? What's infecting their minds and just like setting it off is that they can't believe that all of these nominees for all of these posts are people that actually have morals and actually stand for something and actually represent something. Now, if it was on their side of the aisle, they say, well, you know, everybody's human. I mean, you know, the greatest sin was because I could, right? I mean, that's the mentality of the other side. They're shocked that these people aren't that way. Big show straight ahead. Kevin McCullough coming right back. We've got Megan Woods in the spotlight. Don't go anywhere.
From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough, That Kevin Show, and we are in that kind of interesting, nebulous season of our nation's existence where you have a Congress, you don't yet have a president, you're switching things over, confirmation hearings are going on. What does it all look like? How do you exist in this state? What does the Constitution have to say about all this? Let's talk to somebody who knows. In fact, she's a senior legal fellow at the Edwin Meese Center at the Heritage Foundation. The Legal and Judicial Studies is the Edwin Meese III Center there. And Sarah Parshall Perry rejoins us. Hi, Sarah. Happy New Year. It's good to see you.
Thank you. You as well. And Happy New Year to you.
And I'm sorry that we missed each other at the holiday gathering in Manhattan. We'll make a point to do that next year. This is a weird few days, is it not? That you got confirmation hearings going on and you've got a new Congress seated, which I hope has a lot to do in their first 100 days or so. But we're not yet, you know, the president gets sworn in just a few days. What is the governing thought about, like, even from our enemies or from people outside? Are we vulnerable during this time? How does this work from a government standpoint?
Well, it depends ultimately on how quickly things get done. We really want to see these cabinet nominees get confirmed as quickly as possible. In his last term, his set of cabinet appointees, and these are all top-level positions, they're secretaries, not even deputy or assistant secretaries, but all top-level secretaries. His last cabinet was not fully confirmed until the end of April, which of course presented some difficulty because you've got everything from FBI background checks to paperwork to financial disclosures, and then that has to take place for the deputies, for the assistants, and all the way down the food chain into the GS service of government. And we're really hoping that these nominees, and there are quite a number of hearings that are going to be held very, very soon, these nominees are actually going to be approved very quickly, going to be moved through the process, and that Democrats don't attempt to stonewall in an attempt to essentially ride bureaucratic coattails of the outgoing Biden administration and make life difficult for the incoming president. Much of what he wants to do through these cabinet secretaries involves national security, tariffs, and border security. So these are issues that are going to be handled on the ground level through these cabinet secretaries, all the more reason for them to get confirmed quickly.
So in the, and I know that there was some discussion about this before it happened, but Harry Reid kind of blew up the filibuster on certain levels of nominations. I don't think the average American knows really how any of that works. What is the power of the minority to stop or to delay this? And do you anticipate from the makeup, because it's a closely divided, both bodies are closely divided, do they have the power to slow it down, or is this something that Republicans can just get done and be done with it?
Well, hopefully the ideal scenario and the more likely than not scenario is that the Republicans are going to be able to get the nominees confirmed that they want. It's just going to take a longer period of time. For example, Pam Bondi for Attorney General's already been slated for not one, but 2 hearings. Many of these hearings have already been postponed by a couple of days or a few weeks based on the fact that some of these financial disclosures, the background checks, have not yet been completed. It makes you wonder whether or not there's stonewalling going on at the DOJ not to actually get these background checks done quickly. But Republicans, for all intents and purposes, are going to be able to overcome any filibuster attempt by the Democrats. It's a good sign that there are slim majorities for the GOP in the House and the Senate, but specifically so with regard to these nominees in the Senate. We're looking at enough of a cushion to be able to vote these candidates through, unless, of course, there is some unforeseen objection from some of these newly minted senators that have come in for the 119th, some of whom have yet to sort of experience what the conservative bona fides are for President Trump and what he wants to do for the country.
Well, so let's talk about that for a second. On legislation, it's a 2/3 hurdle that you have to get over. What is it on nominations?
Nominations require unanimity, I believe, of all of the GOP senators to be able to overcome any objections that are anticipated by the Democrats.
So it's a 51-49 vote.
Right.
That's all they have to hit.
Right. That's exactly it. So that indicates to me that we're in a good position going forward because we do have a margin of error of a few votes one way or another. So in anticipation that some GOP bureaucratic stalwarts who want business as usual are going to put up a fight for some of these more unconventional nominees like Pete Hegseth, for example, there are a few sort of wiggle room votes either way. But again, this goes to the question of whether or not the vision for the country that we believe all the voters voted for on November 5th of last year ultimately is going to be executed through these cabinet secretaries. And it was very clear that the response from the voters was they were tired of business as usual, whether that's on the GOP or the Democratic side.
So I've heard a couple of different theories about this, even from within the heritage ranks themselves, and that is that if for whatever reason they do hit a stall, and I'm hoping that Thune can whip the votes and make it happen. If you're Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski, you don't have a lot to lose by just getting people confirmed and getting government working. Like that's not a big downside even to a more progressive base if you're a Republican in a really rough area. But I don't think there's a lot of those. That's my point. Most of the Northeast Trump went stronger in every county across the country. 3,800 counties, he increased his vote totals in all of those. And Kamala, there wasn't one county nationwide that Kamala took that Joe didn't. Yeah. So in terms of having a strong footing, even Murkowski and Collins should be willing to play ball here. In the event that they hit upon someone that they are questionable on, Kash Patel or Pete Hegseth or whoever, Bondi, what is the means by which, if needed, Trump could move the houses to be out of session and then make all recess appointments? Because I've heard that it has to be done in a certain way, but Speaker Johnson's going to be on board. So I'm not too worried about the pieces, but how does it work mechanically?
Well, mechanically, under the appointments clause, it is possible that the president has the authority to essentially direct the Senate to go out for recess. And then the Senate, before leaving, would actually direct the House to go out for recess. So recess appointments are technically, mechanically constitutional. They have not been undertaken in recent history. And it is slightly problematic from the standpoint that based on what we know as to how this would work mechanically, those individuals who may be recess appointed would have to serve without a salary. Now, I know no one goes into government service thinking that they're going to make quite a bit of money, but particularly so for these individuals, listen, they may, for the future of the nation, for the sake of getting business underway, many of these individuals, I give you individuals like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, obviously, who are going to be at Doge, those individuals don't need a government salary. quickly. They are more keen to getting the work underway. And so that would be something these cabinet
I would kind of like to see both of them step up and say, as the head of Doge, voluntarily, we're not going to do it. Trump did it for his first term. She's with the Heritage Foundation. She's a senior legal fellow at the Edwin Meese III Legal Center there. And we're coming back to Times Square.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back from Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough. It's That Kevin Show. And coming up tonight in the New Music Spotlight, Megan Woods, another independent woman. And she will be our featured guest artist. Looking forward to that this week on the New Music Spotlight. Just a few more minutes with Carrie Lukas, who is the head of Independent Women's Forum. And Carrie, as we have shifted gears, and, you know, things change quickly. When the Biden administration came into office, I believe it was on day one that Joe Biden signed the executive action that forced the trans ideology, gender identity programs into the schools and blackmailed public schools, threatening to take away breakfasts for poor kids if they didn't stick the gender identity stuff in there. That was on day one, executive order. He just made it happen. There's a lot that can change quickly, and there's some that needs legislative and long-term kind of paths to success. What are you anticipating in the next 24 hours, 48 hours as Trump takes his hand off the Bible? And then if you were to gaze a year from now and say next January, Kev, here's what we'd like to see happen. What are you kind of most anticipating?
Yeah, you know, it is going to be fascinating to see all of the executive orders and the actions that President Trump is going to be taking. And I'm really proud that a lot of our people have been working with some of the specific things that are going to be coming out. And there will certainly be protections that come for women, for female athletes, for female prisoners, and for kind of common sense. I feel like parents are going to have some more confidence that we know what we're talking about when we talk about, programming for girls and programming for boys. But as you said, it's wonderful to have this new day dawning, but we don't know what's going to happen in another 4 years from now. So this can't stop with executive orders. This has to result. There has to be legislation that happens at a federal level to take protections. We need to take back Title IX and make sure that we get these definitions in law so there is a common language again. We need that also to become a reality on the state level. And obviously this whole protecting women issue, this is a big one for us. But man, there is so much more that needs to happen and that I'm really excited about. 2025 is going to be just totally pivotal, not just in restoring common sense in this, giving parents back some control over what's happening in their K through 12 schools, getting the federal bureaucracy out of the weeds on that. I really hope, and we're going to be focusing big time on economic reform. One of the main things that we were hearing from women is I can't afford the costs of life is outpacing my ability to keep up with it in terms of income. So we want to see energy deregulation to get those energy costs, which ripple through and drive so much of our inflation. We want to protect opportunity for women. So the economic picture is also one that we're going to be really focused on because that impacts every woman, every man, and all the opportunities that are out there. So I really feel like there's going to be so much change in these first 100 days. There's going to be help on the way on many levels.
Well, it's going to be one of those things where I hope there's a lot of pleasant surprises. You were talking about the executive actions that could be rolled out in the first day. I believe, according to some of the people that have told me that are on the inside of this, there's going to be hundreds of executive actions signed in the first day. And so he's going to, that pen's going to get dry quick. But it's all because it has to be done to undo the damage that was done before. And I guess when you're talking about legislative options, we want to ensure going forward that my daughter, but that my daughter's daughters don't have to come and relitigate and refight these battles. The 1920s stood for something. It was the declaration that men and women were fully equal and that under the law, they should be treated fully equally. The 60s and 70s, that's a different conversation. That was about men being replaced by women in places where sometimes it's not beneficial to children or to society to replace one with the other. But the good old 1920s suffragettes, that's my kind of feminism. And I think that's what we need to see like a return to, the idea that men and women have unique gifts, unique abilities, unique skills. They all contribute to the welfare of society and life. But when we think we get a little bit smarter than God or the Creator or the Almighty or however anybody wants to put it, and we think we know better than them, and that one can just be randomly substituted for the other, we've really overstepped our boundaries. At least that's my. I'm so glad that we can have some common sense people fighting. That like IWF are saying, no, there's value in what we bring as a unique entity, and that's what we should be applauding.
Yep, I totally agree. It's going to be, there's so much potential now in restoring that kind of common sense that can have generational impacts. I don't know about you, but I feel like it's Christmas Eve, and I can't wait to see what's under the tree.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show. And as you know, every single week we feature the New Music Spotlight, which highlights new music. Interesting that we do that. And people ask me about this all the time. They say, what's the rules for being on the Spotlight? There are none. It is what new music is coming out that my producers and people that I trust and talk to all across the country, and I used to program music radio for a long time, so we have some hunches about what songs are going to do well. And in fact, there are loads and loads of number ones that come from our list each year. And last year, another spectacular run, of course, Blessing Offer and Dolly Parton, the Song of the Year. Jelly Roll. First time he ever appeared in the New Music Spotlight, number 2 with the song Liar. And my next guest had the number 3 song, and it's the only song she had released in her entire career up until that point. It was called The Truth. Her name is Megan Woods, and she now joins us. Hello, Megan.
Hi, how are you, Kevin?
It's good to have you here. Now, we were so excited about The Truth, and I think your manager will attest to this, like, in the middle of the summer or towards the late end of the summer, we reached out to try to get you on the New Music Spotlight because we were very high on the potential of what that song would do, at least with our audience. But you didn't have a second song. So we weren't able to pull you on the show and all the rest of that. But we went ahead and we released it another week, and we used some of your social media stuff and other things to kind of piece together a medley of things that you had done, and that worked well. And you ended up without your first full album out or anything else like that, finishing at number 3 for the year.
So crazy.
What did you think? What did you hear? I mean, how'd you hear about it? What happened?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was on social media and I got tagged in a post of yours, and I started to check out your page, and I was just so blown away to be just in the company of so many amazing artists that I've listened to and looked up to. So it was just really surreal. Yeah.
Well, that song has had a massive impact on people, and I know that because we've been following your social for a while. But talk about what people have said to you about the meaning and the life of the song called The Truth.
Mm-hmm. Well, my favorite part of doing this is, getting to meet people after shows, and just the stories I've heard is just so cool how, my story can really impact someone else's story, whatever they're walking through. But recently, there's a girl on social media that I talked to, and her name's Ella. And she always comments on my posts saying that the song basically helped her heal from her eating disorder. And so I've been staying in touch with her and stuff. And she actually shared her story on my Instagram, so I've seen, this song heal people in that way. I've seen, people who are going through cancer, who are walking, through a really dark time in their life, who maybe are looking in the mirror, not recognizing who they are, when they're walking through this. And, the song can be a reminder that like nothing has changed about them. Like their identity in Jesus is the same. So.
Well, and let me ask you about your story. Where did the song come from? Why this particular set of lyrics?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Well, I wrote the song out of my deepest struggles. I always struggled believing that I felt, I was worthy, or I struggled with confidence a lot growing up. And so this song is about the truth of how God sees us and how God views us. And, I wanted to write a song that was an anthem in my life that I could sing over myself and just be reminded of what God says about me and how he views me and the truth. Because, it's so easy to just like let the lies take over in our minds. So I just wanted to write a reminder.
Well, it reinforces all of those themes. And I know from people that saw it on the show and have responded just in back channels to me that it has meant a lot. You did a few different, you released a couple of different versions, and one of the ones that we really liked was the one that was just you and more of just a string section than kind of the full production. What type of writer are you? This is your first song. This is your first foray.
Yeah.
How would you classify your style for people that aren't familiar?
I feel like for me, when I write, I can't really say what kind of writer I am because I start from a title and I like to go from there. And really, I guess I would say I like to start with lyrics and an idea first. And then I get in the room with some really amazing writers. And, then we start, writing melodies together. So I get really inspired by, the titles and go from there.
Yeah.
But I'm very inspired by CeCe Winans, Whitney Houston, Adele. So I love writing ballads. I feel like it's just from the heart. So, but I also love upbeat songs. So I love it all.
Well, you certainly have one of those big throaty alto presence, and it's a huge voice. It's just this little girls there, and this big voice comes out. It's just amazing to hear that. We've got a new song that we're going to debut tonight. What's the theme and kind of message behind this?
Yeah, so it's called Prayer in a Bible, and I love that it has some rock elements because I grew up listening to my dad's radio, 70s rock. So I love that about it, and it's just about like getting.
Who's your favorite 70s music group?
Ooh. I want to say I love Boston a lot.
Okay.
Also, trying to think. My dad loved the Beatles, but I know they were more 60s. But
they were.
Yeah.
And not very complicated songs, to be honest with you. I don't get the Beatles. Like everyone around me is like Beatles. I've never kind of understood that. I just kind of thought they weren't bad. They were pretty good. They sold a lot of records, but they were pretty good.
My dad always played their music around the house, so I know all their songs.
Yeah. I went for years trying to figure out what the Yellow Submarine was. Anyway, so this is a prayer in a Bible. What's the story?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to write kind of an anthem too, about when I got saved and just like when I was walking through, the lyrics are like, hard times in a wasteland, running from my shame. And I just wanted to write like the journey of like getting saved and like really, trading chains for my salvation and just make it an anthem. It reminds me of the Super Bowl when I hear it, but it's just like this upbeat anthem that, Christians can listen to, and just, celebrate like I'm a child of God and I'm saved, and God really rescued me from this place. So
yeah. Well, when we come back from this break, we're going to debut Prayer in a Bible from Megan Woods here on That Kevin Show. But so thankful that you could take a few minutes out to speak with us. Sometimes that third place finisher, for whatever reason, goes on to have enormous impact. Lindsay L. was the very first one that kind of did that, and she continues to have huge impact in Canada and so forth. And thanks for being part of that club. If we're here to make a difference, I'd like the people that are on the same journey with us.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for the kind words and taking your time. This is awesome.
You got it. All right, when we come back from this break, it's Prayer in a Bible.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Time for our annual planning meeting. I'm still hungover. I can't make plans.
You're fine. You get all the twinkle lights
I get nothing. I hope this year I get something really fun. We'll see. Okay, when are we going to schedule the massive polar vortex that's going to bring devastatingly bad weather to most of the country? February? Ooh, I have Valentine's Day, and it's such a short month, too. January it is. What? That's not fair. Okay, we have Easter in April this year. 4th of July will be on a Friday. Fun. USA! USA! When can we have all the things break in the house at the same time? Garbage disposal, heat, freezer. Not it. We finally have that family vacation planned. You're right. January. How come everything needs to go wrong in my month? Must be so hard being you. Okay, everyone gets the stomach flu. January. Can you please just give that to March? Not with spring break. That would be awful. What about some seasonal depression? January. You can take that, right? That's the spirit. Okay. What about the long planning meetings at work where you hear about how you failed to hit all your targets for the year before? January, taking one for the team. Can I get a drink? Ooh, no, sorry, no booze for you. Dry January. How can you pack so much into 1 month? Let's just make it feel like January is 47 days long, so we'll have time to fit all this in. Great idea, right? If it's gonna be that long, can I just get the Super Bowl back? Absolutely not. That one's mine now.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, sketch comedy from the Babylon Bee and the Holderness family. Seeking comfort in the fires of Southern California, Camille and Megan Woods return to the spotlight. And now, a man whose chances of being invited to the inaugural ball this week would have increased if only he had been the one who possessed a glass slipper. Here's the Yeah, Dave, I don't think so. Even if I had had a glass slipper, I don't think I was going to get on the invite list. I don't know why either, because like half of my regular guests are all going to be members of the new cabinet. Anyway, time to kvetch about that later. Let's get straight to the news. For a Simon Desk weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. In his final televised speech to the nation this week, outgoing President Joe Biden seemed to have trouble. In fact, most commentators agreed he was on the struggle bus, possibly even piloting it. The feeble ice cream lover pictured here asking for extra nuts in his hot fudge, consistent with his presidential behavior, read teleprompter cues not intended to be spoken by the addressee, and at one point shook hands with a ghost. However, he had problems with imaginary policies as well, referring to things like the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, which hasn't been up for serious consideration in the law since sometime in the mid-1970s. He referred to the ERA as the 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Simon Desk Weekend would like to point out that the ERA was never passed on the federal level and that there are only 27 constitutional amendments. Kamala Harris, attempting to keep a brave face, declared this week that she would not be going quietly from her office. Those familiar with the statement said she then added, "And if you don't believe me, ask those celebrities who stood me up and won't give me my money back." Mel Gibson is among those that President Trump has named as special ambassadors to Hollywood. Simon Desk Weekend is unsure as to which character, if any, from his past movies Gibson might in fact channel to perform his tasks. He has been heard recently, however, rehearsing near his home, wearing blue face paint, but they can never take our freedom. Simon Desk Weekend would also like to point out that most ambassador posts include only one person. For instance, for the war-torn Middle East, Governor Mike Huckabee is the lone ambassador to the State of Israel. Same at the UN. Lots of bad guys, only one ambassador. However, President Trump believes Hollywood is in such disrepair, he's dispatched 3. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Calvin McCullough.
Good evening and welcome to the evening news this evening. Just moments ago, President-elect Donald Trump announced plans to annex Canada and rename it Gay North Dakota. The surprise announcement comes as Justin Trudeau announces his resignation from the Canadian Prime Ministership, presumably to make way for an American governorship. The pair had previously met back in November at the president's resort home at Mar-a-Lago. The pair had been expected to discuss Trump's tariff plans, but somehow ended with Trump agreeing to absorb Canada as the 51st State of the Union. His one demand, though, is that Canada be renamed to something very homosexual. Trump said in a press conference, "It'll be a wonderful addition to our country, Gay North Dakota. It's large, very large, a lot of trees and meese. Everyone says the plural of moose is moose, but they're wrong, it's meese. But we can't keep calling it Canada or people will think it's a real country. So we're gonna call it Gay North Dakota. It's just like North Dakota, only much larger and gayer. Very, very gay. Not that I have a problem with the gays, I love the gays, but frankly, Canada is tremendously gay." Alternative names have been floated, such as Gay Minnesota, the Forgotten Realms, and the land that hasn't won the Stanley Cup since 1993. Trump is still insisting it has to be Gay North Dakota, though many Canadians remain unconvinced.
I mean, the whole thing is offensive, not about being gay, but just being called North Dakotan.
I'm sorry. What exactly are you sorry for? I don't know. I'm just sorry. I'm sorry.
The Trump camp is bullish over the move. As Donald Trump Jr. stated, they'll go along with it. We're offering them the opportunity to finally become Americans, which is what they've always wanted. They'll be nice about it because they're Canadians. Or should I say, Gay North Dakotans. It's not all hostile, though. Trump has offered Justin Trudeau a leadership role, which would make Trudeau the first female governor of Gay North Dakota. Coming up, Trump announces his plan to deport over 5,000 illegal immigrants in just one Honda Civic hatchback simultaneously. Good evening, Sunday evening.
January 739th. This month is 104 months long with no concept of time. How long ago was Christmas? Or was it 26 years ago? You forgot what all your presents were. You honestly don't know. Is it possible that in 1 month you got COVID twice? And you've been on this diet. You forgot what carbs taste like. And you tried January. And it isn't any fun at all. Especially with Jason Kelsey doing shots out of a bowling ball. Today's January 739. You went for a walk at 5 p.m., which was 10 o'clock at night. The walk was only around the block, but it lasted 7 weeks. When you started the walk, you were 48, and now you are 63. You thought you were done with jackets, and so you put them all away. And then a wind chill came to town, and it lasted 1,000 days. Well, at least there's one more football game. We've got the Super Bowl, but by the time it airs, we all will be 190 years old. Your New Year's resolutions have come and gone. You couldn't keep them 'cause this month is way too long. It probably probably seems like this song has lasted 40 weeks, but the actual runtime so far is about 1:53. Cause we're in a timeless vortex, it's a winter purgatory, and you can't remember anything from 2023. There's nothing to look forward to, or maybe Valentine's Day, but that's in February, which is 82 years away. This month is basically the same as dial-up internet. Why isn't it February? Yeah.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to that Kevin show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square, Kevin McCullough. You don't have to look very far to see suffering in our world. Our entire West Coast right now is under immense suffering. And as we have seen reasons why that's come about from public officials and negligence and mismanagement and a whole host of other things. One of the points that kind of has been driven home to me in recent days is that the cause of it doesn't always matter. If you're suffering, you're suffering. If you're in pain, you're in pain. You want it to stop. You want it to go away. You would like things to be better. Maybe the only thing that's worse than that is when you're not the one going through it, but you love the person that is. And that's kind of the perspective, at least I think it is, of my next guest. Camille Block is her name, and the book is called Hope for Secondhand Suffering, Tools for the Heart When You Can't Fix Your Loved One's Pain. This is the book. Go get a copy, read it, know it. Camille joins us from her home in Southern California. Camille, welcome. Good to see you.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
I want to get into the book itself, but I want to talk about the idea of suffering initially first, especially for people that live around and near you. You're able to talk to us today through the miracle of technology and through a degree of safety because your particular community in Southern California has been spared thus far of the tragedy that's going on there. But as you see it break out all around you, what are your thoughts in terms of what your neighbors and friends and loved ones and family are going through?
Yeah, it's crazy. My thoughts are, I feel people's pain pretty deeply, even if they're not my best friend or they're not my family member. And I think it struck me, I've lived here my whole life. We've had our share of fires, every few years, there's always something, but this is different. It feels different. And entire communities were wiped out. Yeah. And so, a lot of people, I know 5 people personally that lost their homes. I have one person who's actually in the other room, spent the night, who's evacuating. She's in Topanga Canyon, and they're kind of always on watch. People have not been sleeping, watching their apps and turning on the news. It's been a little overwhelming. And I have been surprised at how much I've actually been feeling that weight myself. And I didn't even lose power. Most of my friends have lost power. And so, there's a degree of, even feeling that survivor's guilt to some degree of like, well, why am I okay and they're not, So yeah, I'm feeling it even though I'm fine.
Well, it's interesting because even on the East Coast, even in New York, people, not just my wife, who happens to stem from your area of California, but people that have never lived in California. I think the whole nation is feeling the sense of loss. My colleague Hugh Hewitt said on his show the other day that in terms of the land and the scale of the loss, this is the second largest since 9/11 on American soil, and that while the death toll has not reached that, we're starting to get numbers of people that have died as well. So this is a genuine tragedy through and through, and it's one that I think humans can get angry about because you look at it and you say, well, humans caused it. At least if they didn't start the first blaze, there were not sufficient precaution taken to prevent something from breaking out, even when you knew like the winds were coming days in advance, and the mayor leaves town and all the rest of that. I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but the point being that sometimes very tragic and horrific things take place outside of our ability to control them. And I think that's where what you've written about in Hope for Secondhand Suffering, Tools for the Heart when you can't fix your loved one's pain. I think there's probably some principles in here that are very timely for us. And I want to get into kind of where you make application for others. But this book came out of a personal story for you, and I'd like to start there. What was the basis for Hope for Secondhand Suffering?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Well, I have a disabled brother with cerebral palsy, quadriplegic, and at age 3.5, he lived with me. I was his protector. I have another little brother following him. And I just had this special connection with him ever since he was born. And my parents said, "Oh, well, he's special," and I always understood there was something very special about him, but I didn't quite understand what that was until he reached age 3.5, which is very young, as you know. And a place opened up where, at the time, this was in the early 70s. They didn't have what's now called Regional Center in California, at least, where there's funding for families to keep their kids at home to get the care that they need. My dad is a college professor. We didn't have the resources to hire that kind of help. My mom was going crazy with 3 kids under 5, and my brother, couldn't walk, couldn't talk, couldn't eat normal, and he had seizures, and there was things going on, and so they ended up placing him in a home at 3.5. And I was told, well, he can be with people like himself. He'll never be any different. This is, kind of from the doctor's mouths to my parents to me. You just have to, accept that he'll be with people like himself. And they use the term, it's really kind of a bad word right now in the disabilities community, but they called, he's mentally retarded. He'll never understand anything. He won't know any better. And so my parents kind of believed that, even though I think in their heart they knew that quite wasn't true. But there was a place for him, a bed. And, this place has been lovely. And he's been there all his life, actually, to this day. It wasn't until my daughter went to college, my firstborn went to college, and 2 weeks later, my mom suddenly died from a massive stroke, that I was hit with an overwhelming grief. And it was a grief I couldn't explain. And I started journaling on the computer. It's because I've learned to do that better than the journal. But what came out was kind of my shock, and it was all about my brother, Kevin. And so that's where the book started. It was like I realized there was unresolved grief, a lot of suppression of emotions that I had never really dealt with. And it all came out, and kind of coincidentally, or not coincidentally, but at the same time, I have become his medical conservator, his advocate, and I am now, I fight. He's still here, he's still alive. In fact, he's doing better than ever, and it's because of advocacy and a lot of things I've done with that secondhand suffering. And I guess the term itself kind of came about because as I was writing, it just occurred to me, I'm not the only one that feels this feeling. When you love someone and you can't fix it. So, I describe it as that silent anguish and a very heavy emotional burden that grips our hearts when we're walking alongside someone that we love that has great pain or suffering, but we really can't fix it. And it's like, how do you describe that? Yeah. And that's kind of where the term came.
Well, in the era of secondhand secondhand suffering makes total sense to me, at least. And I think for people that are parents, there's a certain degree of this that is also kind of built in, because while it's not as intense as what you've had to deal with for many years with your brother and kind of let's just throw all the analogies in there, compound the interest on it over time so it becomes more and more. I think any time that a parent sees their child go through something that they are powerless to do anything about, I think it's that unknown, and it's that inability to do anything about it. And so what do I do with the pain and how I'm dealing with that? So I think this is an eminently practical topic. When we come back, we can't go into the whole thing, but what are some kind of defining attributes of secondhand suffering as you've dealt with them? And then what are maybe 1 or 2 suggestions as to how we can help when we're aware?
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Times Square, Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you with us. That Kevin Show online. Everything is at thatkevinshow.com. All my socials, everything else. The one thing you can't get at that is That Kevin Store, which is where you go to get the coffee mug and stuff. The rest of it, thatkevinshow.com. My guest is Camille Block, and the book is called Hope for Secondhand Suffering, Tools for the Heart When You Can't Fix Your Loved One's Pain. And she was just telling us before the break about her own inability to, how do I put this, Camille, to relieve the burden that your brother is experiencing.
I just say fix it. Like, can't fix it.
Yeah, you can't fix it. You can't do anything about it, but you want to. And so that anxiety of the desire to help and to make better, but not being able to, dare I say that sometimes God puts us in that place on purpose? Is that overstating the case?
Well, that's a theological question I wrestle with throughout my book. So you'll have to read the full thing, 364 pages.
Well, you're not the only one. Biblical writers wrestled with that, including Paul and some of the, the really big guys. So
I can't soundbite that one very well, but I can try. I don't know that. I think I've learned to not blame God, actually, is
well, and I don't think he puts us there to blame him. I think that if we believe that he's sovereign and we're walking through something that he's allowed us to be in, it's because there is a purpose that we are supposed to learn something about him or about me in that process. So what is the kind of defining mark of secondhand suffering, and what's kind of like one thing that you've learned that's benefited you or someone else because you've gone through this season?
Yeah. Well, a secondhand suffering, I think, is sometimes it's not necessarily hopeless, although we feel hopeless. And so I think I've learned that yes, while we might not, I think Nick Vujicic says this really well, like, while we may not always get a miracle, we can be a miracle. And so what I've learned is there's validity to pursuing hope, and that hope is not just something that's nebulous and kind of vacuous. It's actually real. And I have seen through my persistency and my ability to deal with my own heart because of these issues and face it and realize it is a thing. It's real. And now we have language for it. Because of that, I've been able to work on my heart. It's a body, soul, mind, spirit thing. It's the whole thing. It's very holistic. So I'd say one thing I've learned is, how do you find purpose out of the pain? And I think you just alluded to that. I do believe good can come from bad. I don't believe that bad is good, though. I don't believe that what happened to my brother is purposeful or right or good, but I do believe good can come from it. And so what is that good? Well, one thing I've learned is advocacy, that actually there's stuff we can do. So redefining what success is, redefining those victories, redefining those miracles. Maybe he's not running and walking and doing all the things that I would love him to do, but he is actually healthier now than he was 10 years ago because I've advocated to get him the right food, the right, the G-tube formula switched, he was in pain, he was screaming, he was always getting pneumonia. Like, he's been healthy for the last year and a half, and it's all the work I've done, and it's more joyful. I have secondhand joy now so many times when I see him because he's healthy, he's smiling, I'm finding new tools for him. So I think that advocacy and knowing that it's real and dealing with my heart journey has been probably the quick sound bites I can give you right now.
I think that Secondhand Joy is going to be the sequel title to this volume.
I actually just thought of that. Yeah.
But no, and it's kind of convenient to say that something's just theological. And I'm not saying you were being convenient. I think a lot of times we want to compartmentalize everything, but you were talking about the holistic approach. And I think that God interacts with the human experience in a holistic way. He understands who we are beginning to end, and why he made us and what we are here to accomplish, the purpose that he gives us. And I think that so many times our culture, particularly in the day in which we live, teaches us to look at the most shallow, the easiest path, the least resistance. And if we don't find satisfaction in that pursuit, then it's been a waste. And I don't think there's anything about God or truth that exists in that kind of theory, because I know for myself, the hardest things I've learned in life have come at sometimes great pain, but it's been, what is the other side of this? How do I get to the other side of that? And what is it here for? And of course not. Disease, pain, suffering, death, none of those things are good. But even taking your application here, advocacy, to the California fire scenario, if the people of Southern California can in some way call to account their leaders and get better policies in place and protect generations down the road, good can be had from what is being experienced now. But it's going to take some perspective to get there. Friends, I really do want you to get the book. I think you're going to be very challenged by it. Hope for Secondhand Suffering, Tools for the Heart When You Can't Fix Your Loved One's Pain. Camille Block is the author.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Very special edition of the broadcast. As you're no doubt sensing, it's not my normal news and current events kind of fare. We're going kind of deep here. And the reason is because I think we can help people. And that's why I'm glad that Camille Block has written this book, Hope for Secondhand Suffering. By the way, the foreword's written by Chelsea and Kurt Cameron. You might know them. But they say real, vulnerable, relatable, perspective changing, and practical. Those are the types of helps that I want to be able to offer you. And that's why I'm grateful for Camille's book, Hope for Secondhand Suffering, Tools for the Heart When You Can't Fix Your Loved One's Pain. Camille, you started journaling out of your own experience, and I know what that's like. You just start throwing stuff on the page, and you don't even really care about grammar or anything. You just got to get the thoughts out, and then you organize them, and on some level they start taking shape. But it's one thing for you to go through this with your brother and people who have disabled relatives. I have a son who is disabled, not to the degree that your brother is, but he's a functional adult, lives in a group home, does the types of things that he's able to do, but there's a lot of life that he's never going to be able to do. He's never going to probably be able to be married. He can't read as a fully formed adult. He can't do math. There's a lot of help that he's going to need for the duration of his life. Obviously, writing the book means you intend for other people to be helped by this. What has been some of the feedback and the reaction you've gotten from people that have looked at it? And I know that you've had even clinical people take a look at this all the way down to the everyday person. So what's been kind of the spectrum of response?
Yeah. It's been incredible. I would say the people who've taken the time to write an Amazon review, you can check that out also. But
which I encourage people to do. If you get the book and you read it and it helps you say something nice about it on Amazon, it always helps.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm learning. It has nothing. I mean, disabilities is just one of many things, and I'm sorry to hear about your son. I need to understand that more. But it's definitely a very common thing right now with the rise of autism specifically. More and more people are facing this, but it's so much more than that. I had a friend whose daughter was engaged to be married to his wonderful 25-year-old. And, he died of really bad cancer 3 days before their wedding.
Wow.
And the mother, it's like, you don't think, you think of him and, tragic, his family. And then, but the mother was so understanding this concept, secondhand suffering. And she just got a tear in her eye when she heard the title of the book. She says, I completely get it. And then just recently, a woman from Alaska, she's born with 2 out of 3 of her kids were born with a blindness and severe allergies, and her husband just left her, and this woman gave her the book, and she just wept, and she just felt like, I feel so understood. So I think people are like, the secondhand sufferers, I think, have felt invisible. And it's not to, I've said this on another show, it's not to create another victim class for sure, but it is that when people feel heard and understood and seen, it actually brings comfort. It is something bizarre. And I think that's something that God has created, that people need community. And so what I'm seeing is just the naming of the term, the giving of the book, and and the reading of the book. I had someone that her 52-year-old daughter is dying of brain cancer, and a friend of mine gave it to the mother of the 52-year-old daughter. And the mother got it and in half a day read the first 150 pages and said, this is exactly what I've needed. A woman in a doctor's office. I have a friend who's the office manager in a doctor's office. She just put it on the table, and this woman started reading it. And this woman, I happened to find out from this office manager that she had been suicidal. She started reading it and she said, can I take this home and borrow it? I'm like, I'll give you another one. Give it to her. So I'm hearing these things that is way beyond just disability, children and then the last example is just, cancer's rampant. I have my best friend, one of my very best friends died a year and a half ago of not even of cancer, just of the kind of the whole medical processes and all of that led to it. And I watched her husband, and me, go through a 6-month journey of her in the hospital suffering. And it's like, wow, like we suffered with her. So I just think it's such a common thing. So I'm hearing that it's helpful. I'd say the con of the book, if I can be honest, is it's deep. It's meaty. It's a journey. Nothing's shallow. There's no cliches in here. I'm edgy, and so it's a journey to read the book, and it's introspective. People say it making them think about things they've never thought about before. There's questions. It's almost like an interactive journal as well. So it's not for the faint of heart. They just want to read a quick book. This isn't it, and I wish it was, but it's not.
Well, one of my pastors and mentors from earlier in my life, Dr. Ray Pritchard, was one of the things that he would often say in our conversations, and I think I heard him say it from the pulpit a time or two, is that the Bible addresses the issue of pain a lot because everyone's going to experience it a lot. It's just part of the human existence. And you're in one of three places every day of your life. You're in a crisis, you've just come out of a crisis, or you're about to go into a crisis. But there's no place that you're not in one of those three spots. And the beauty of being able to put down thoughts and say, this is true, and you can hang on to this, and this will help get you through, is that we can do that for one another. And so, friends, as you've heard Camille's story and what she's been talking about, I just hope that you'll pick up a copy. Hope for Secondhand Suffering. Camille Block is the author. Tools for the Heart When You Can't Fix Your Loved One's Pain. And we all have a lot of that. By the way, she's got a website as well, camilleblock.cc, camilleblock.cc. You can go there, and you can follow her on the social medias as well. Again, Camille, the idea that people are in pain, and without any question, we're going to go through pain. But the real help here is that we can develop community, not because we all go through the same thing. I mean, my bride and I lost both of our mothers to cancer. So people that are dealing with cancer are people that we can love on, but we can also love on the kids of people that whose parents are going through cancer as well. Because Camille Block, congratulations on Hope for Secondhand Suffering. Friends, get a copy. Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, all the normal places you get books, or at Camille's website, camilleblock.cc, and just all sorts of congratulations on the help that you're going to be bringing to people. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me.
You got it. Kevin McCullough coming back from Times Square. Don't change that dial.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.